Morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday show where we break down our upcoming opponent. This week, it'll be the Kentucky Wildcats. Kind of a strange team. They have some interesting stats and some interesting stuff they put on tape. So we'll definitely take a look at them. But first, we'll do just very quick Arkansas thoughts. Then we'll dive into the Kentucky offense, Kentucky defense, and then finally opponent games of interest. We only have 2 more games left, but there's some matchups we could get in the conference championship that we can kind of look at as well. Give us a little bit more options. Paul, how'd you feel about Arkansas, man? And don't you say anything negative, dude. 9-1. 9-1 means you can't have any opinions.
That's true. We can't talk about the upside of this team or anything like that.
Yeah. Just be happy we won, Paul.
First, I want to preface the conflict and navigating being a guy growing up in Austin where you get to pick your pro sports teams, right?
Yeah. So
if you're born in Houston, like suck it up, be an Oilers fan and later become a Texans fan. You're an Astros fan, Rockets fan. It's all received, right? Yeah. When you're in Austin, you get to pick your teams, but you can't be a fair weather fan. So the teams you pick when you're a kid, you got to stick with. So Texas Longhorns, obviously #1 affiliation, right?
Yeah.
But then I'm a Houston Astros baseball fan, and I'm a Dallas Cowboys football fan.
Interesting.
The Astros baseball fan thing has paid off the last decade. The Dallas Cowboys football fan thing not paid off in about 25, going on 30 years, Connor.
About when I was born was when the Cowboys were winning.
Right. So yeah, I'm like Texas. I'm always a Texas fan. There's nothing I can do. It doesn't matter whether we go 0-12 or win the national title with the greatest team that's ever played. I am a Texas fan through and through. But Cowboys, I've stuck with them for 30 years.
Are you decommitting right now?
I might become. I just want an NFL franchise to relocate to Austin, San Antonio corridor, like New Braunfels, something. We got to change this up, man. I can't continue to do this. I do make up for it by betting the props of whatever team is playing the Cowboys. So at least I make money off my misery.
Yeah, you win either way. You win money or you win the game.
But yeah, man, that's my life. I wonder if any of you guys can sympathize.
I'm from DFW, so I've dealt with it. I was just saying I'm from DFW, so I know how it feels, man.
Yeah, it's all received. You're a Mavericks fan, whether you like it or not.
Stars, Rangers, like it automatically just, home base fan on all those teams.
All right, so Texas, Arkansas. I wrote my exhaustive thoughts at Inside Texas. If you guys aren't members, you should go join. It's a great place for talking sports and, of course, talking all Texas sports, especially football. I thought the defense played really well. Obviously, Texas doesn't win that game if they don't have an absolutely dominant first half, and they forced 2 big turnovers throughout the game. The interception and, of course, that Alfred Collins strip sack. Speaking of, Alfred Collins and Jahdae Barron played like golden gods on Saturday. They were unbelievable. It just filled up the box score, both of those guys. And then second half on defense, actually, Arkansas did a pretty good job. They only got 4 drives, and 3 of them were good, productive drives. The first touchdown, second ended in a field. So the first we stopped them. Second was the touchdown. Third was a field goal. Fourth, they were driving down the field. And, of course, Alfred Collins stripped them on the 27-yard line. So defense held up globally, but a dominant first half and not as dominant a second half. Offensively, a really poor first half. Quinn Ewers was 15 of 23 for 100 yards. Got sacked twice. Frankly, I thought they were both self-sacks. And if you drop back 25 times and you get 87 yards at quarterback and you're mostly getting good protection, you got some issues going on. So I thought he played better in the second half. Ran the ball decently at times. Too many negative plays inflicted. Not enough diversity in the run game or execution. Our tight ends, we played a lot of 12 personnel, Connor. You probably noticed. They didn't play very well blocking. They didn't do a very good job sealing or, it's tough to ask Gunnar Helm to pin a 6'7", 280-pound guy. who's going to be in the NFL next year. So,
Yeah.
I wasn't in love with some of the aspects of the offensive performance, obviously, but went and got a double-digit road win on the road, and you'll take it in the SEC, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We will. We will. Barron for president. I agree. If Quinn could hit a couple of those deep shots against Arkansas, would have been great. They were open. Yeah, that really changes the complexion.
20 yards, and that 20-yarder was the wide open bust touchdown to Golden, where Arkansas safety bit on the fake screen.
Yeah, Quinn does that a lot. He self sacks.
Yep, he does.
When we lose again due to Quinn's lack of mobility and pocket presence. I mean, there's some mobility, pocket presence, no question, but there's also like open receivers that aren't being hit sometimes. There's like with taking too long. It's like there's and then finally when Quinn like makes a sick play, like the Bolden play, right? Does something incredible, then we drop it. So it's just like there's a lack of cohesiveness here that's a little bit tricky for us. And we'll have to see, man. We'll see versus Kentucky, and then I think a lot of this ends up on Sark having to scheme really good shots for Quinn. Whenever I see Sark handle that, he does a good job, Quinn like that. So it's like I'm not so focused on Quinn winning games from here on out. I'm more focused on Sarkisian's offense winning games from here on out. So it was interesting. We did break tendency and ran for it with Quinn. That's a zone read. I mean, he can always do it if you're, not crashing down. 88 is great. Yes. Barron Sorrell, hell of a game versus Arkansas. I know Ian's probably writing an article on that right now. As soon as you see Ian's GIFs where he's talking about a player, he's diving into it. Yeah. Wide receivers and tight ends also had some costly drops. They did. I don't know if the stats support that, but eye test felt that way. Yeah, there were some crucial points there.
Helm had a bad drop that was a good throw by Quinn. I think that would have gone for 25, 30 yards. He dropped it.
Yeah, that's why it's like if it's whack-a-mole with some of these issues, right? Offensive line can cause an issue, Quinn can cause an issue, wide receivers can drop. It's like it's kind of all over the place.
I also felt like there are a couple of plays that a veteran quarterback probably shouldn't be making at this stage. I'll give you a couple examples. So he's 38 games into starting for Texas, right? So we're near midfield. Arkansas blitzes. They bring 6. It's a 3rd and 6. And we pick it up. And we're running a scrape route down at the bottom at the wide side of the field. That's the first read. It's the call. Sark is obviously anticipating a blitz. So Bond is scraping across a receiver who's cutting across him to get his guy scraped off him. Bond is running towards Ewers, and he's past the sticks, the line to gain. And Ewers looks at him. That's the first read. He gets off of him for some reason. I don't know why. And then runs forward sort of aimlessly into the back of Cam Williams and sacks himself.
Right.
So I just don't really understand that because the called play was
Golden. He has Golden deeper on an end breaker also open. So you have,
the first read was a first down. So just throw that, right? So that was one play. The other play was the screen where Arkansas brought a stunt at the screen, and we ended up losing 5 yards on it. And you could see Sark was kind of lighting him up coming off the field. Obviously, Quinn wasn't supposed to throw that, or he was supposed to change the call, or he audibled into that call. I'm not sure what the deal was there, but the screen was covered. It was going to be a negative play, and at that point, if you've screwed it up or if you made the wrong call, the wrong read, just turf it. Just throw it at throw it at Jaden Blue's feet or throw it over his head out of bounds. So, yeah, it's kind of frustrating to still have those kinds of plays.
Yeah, if you start trying to look for it, like I try to look for plays where Quinn throws it where the wide receiver has the leverage but is draped. Yeah, Quinn almost never throws it. I mean, he does, like, for some reason, like, if the player is even near, and that won't work in the NFL. Like, you have to hit those throws in the NFL. And I just rarely see those when someone's trailing, like, but we still have the edge. Throw it, man. It's like, basically, if someone's within range ever, he's not going to kind of throw it. He needs that, like, wide open intermediate or super deep or a screen where everyone's in front of the defense. It's just for some reason he's hyper cautious, and I don't really know why. It's tricky.
Yep.
All right. Sark has to be perfect when Quinn is in. That's the problem due to him being unable to make the off-schedule play. Yeah, it sure would be nice to be able to improvise a little bit. He did that with Golden on the TD. Technically, yes, but there's no risk happening there. Golden is completely on and out. He either throws out of bounds. You get what I'm saying? I want to see it in the middle of the field. So it's like, yeah, the receiver's draped, but there's no chance that the only thing that receiver our DB can do is long arm it and slap it down.
Bat it down, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I want to see it when there's like middle of the field. There's some bracketing happening. Seems like he's struggling in the middle of the field, which is interesting because I thought he was best in the nation, like including like NFL quarterbacks, like at intermediate passing. I thought he was really special there. This year, that's been completely wiped out. I don't know what's going on because we've seen that consistently for a couple of years. He kills that. Would getting Quinn on the move help at all? So Ian thinks so, right? But remember who completely shut that down? Vanderbilt. That's why you fire that nickel. Because Quinn has no rollout options. So it'd be interesting if we do get him on the move again, if a team remembers, hey, fire that nickel, because that forces Quinn to freeze. And Vandy did a great job with that. Y'all see Arkansas had a better success rate than us this week. I did not. But I wouldn't be surprised. What is it saying? Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, but our game plan was to cap their explosive plays, which is how Arkansas scores points, and that's why they had 10. Their longest play was 25 yards from scrimmage.
Yeah, making Taylon Green march up the field and play quarterback is a good idea, you know?
Yeah.
What is it about what is it saying about the team's outlook for the season that they're still winning with some pretty average quarterback play? That we're incredibly talented.
Well, you could spin that two ways. If we play better in the passing game, we've got upside still 10 games into the season, right?
Yeah.
If we continue to play this way, you probably need to readjust your expectations. I mean, I kind of wrote that your winning 10 games and making the playoff is about your floor as a team. Winning a national title and winning the SEC is about your ability to hit some sort of ceiling. So I'd say we've more explored our floor. I think Texas has a pretty high floor as a team. The ceiling, you're not going to win 3 playoff games or however many playoff games you got to play unless you can transcend and play at a really high level. And we haven't seen that in a while in the passing offense or running offense, to be fair.
Yeah. All right, guys. We talked Arkansas a lot on yesterday's show, Sunday's show. So we got our Arkansas stuff in. Let's move forward and look at Kentucky. We'll start with their offense. It is not a good offense.
No, it is not.
It's a really painful offense. And I have never been a Kentucky viewer previously. So
Have you ever been to Lexington or been to a game in Kentucky or anything like that?
Have you?
Yeah, I've been to a game at Kentucky. Great old stadium. It reminded me of like DKR back in the day. And great tailgate. Good fans, definitely basketball fans.
Right.
And Lexington's a great town. It's one of the SEC towns people never talk about, but it's actually a great little town. It's kind of a medium-sized city, which there aren't a lot of anymore, right?
Yeah.
300,000 people. It feels like everything's well over 1 million, or it's a town, right? It reminds me of Austin when I was a kid, early 70s, 80s. But yeah, nice place.
Yeah, I need to go visit the SEC stadiums because just on TV, man, the atmospheres are incredible in the SEC. But I tricked you guys. Before we keep going, here's a word from our sponsor, Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
I was in Vietnam last Saturday. Fans were bragging about money whipping UK for Calipari. They said the Tyson chicken fam flexed all over them. Does Arkansas have Tyson chicken too? They got Walmart and Tyson. They have some weird like some real powerful benefactors. I didn't realize Tyson was behind them too. Shouts out. What's up, Jet Li? All right, let's look at the Kentucky offense. A lot of red here.
Look at that time of possession, though, Connor.
I was going to say, this is the only thing that they do well.
They possess the ball.
Yep. Yeah, they hold on to the ball. So 116th in the country in points per game, averaging 19. Super slow pace, right? 100th in the country in plays per game, 116th in seconds per play. So slow and plodding. This, of course, is going to boost their time of possession, 23rd in the nation. Yards per play, 113th in the country. Offensive points per drive, 107th. Success rate, not good at 84th. Not explosive at all. Not able to go over the top very often.
Well, if you're explosive, you don't get to hold on to the ball anymore.
Exactly, because if you go on first down, now you're in 2nd and 10, and you'll see these guys don't have the yards to be in 2nd and 10.
You don't want to throw a 70-yard touchdown because then you lose your time of possession.
Yeah, they can't anyways, but it's a good cover to say, like, we're choosing not to have a – yeah. And then 104th in havoc rate. So they're not doing a good job of, like, they still have a lot of variance and bad things that can happen for a team, this style of play, right? This is basically Vanderbilt does what Kentucky wants to be right now. And Vanderbilt was able to beat Kentucky when they played them head to head. That game was really interesting because similar styles. All right. We'll talk rushing offense, and then we'll go into their backs because they actually have the best back in the SEC right now statistically. 87th in yards per rush, so not great, right? 3.9. You would think this is a rushing team, they'd be better at it. They're really not. What they're good at is their rushing success rate. So they'll move forward on you, plotting at that 3.9, 3.9, 3.9. But that's about it. They just move at a snail's pace, hold on to the ball with heavy personnel. And then one of the worst teams in rushing explosivity. So they're not breaking the long run either. Non-ideal in the rushing game. All right. Let's talk backs. So I want to talk about Jamarian Wilcox first, even though he's the second string back.
Are you saying that just because you don't want to say
Sumo Kumbe? Yeah.
You don't want to say Demi Sumo Kangbaya?
Yeah. He's but no, actually he's way better. Let me show you. I found this yesterday. I didn't realize it. Okay. He's averaging 7.6 yards per attempt. That's first in the SEC. He's first in the SEC in yards after contact per attempt. And he's first in breakaway percentage. So he's a killer. And he's young too. So he's a redshirt freshman. So whatever the SEC transfer rules are, baby, come on down. We need you. Okay.
Yeah.
The Horns need you. I'm scouting every back. But Jamarian Wilcox has been an absolute killer for them. And he'll continue to be. What do you think of Demi Sumo Kumbe?
A starting FBS running back?
Correct. Yeah, there's not much to it. He is 25th in the league with 4.6 yards per attempt. He's 18th in yards after contact per attempt, second to last in breakaway percentage. So not a dynamic back right now. Wilcox statistically should be the starter there with ease. But I guess it's a redshirt freshman versus a senior. Kentucky won't be able to sustain any long drives against Texas, and good luck trying to get an explosive. Yep. They are a slow team like Vandy, but not efficient like them. Correct. Yep. If they could, they want to be Vandy. They are not Vandy. What did they look like the previous couple years? I don't watch Kentucky.
Similar deal.
They've been this like dysfunctional though.
So when they clean one thing up on offense, then they have a deficiency elsewhere. So when they had Will Levis, they had the ability to throw the ball, but they couldn't pass protect. And then they've got their two main receivers, Berrien Brown and Dane Key. Dane Key's going to play in the NFL. Like he looks like an NFL runner. He runs good routes. He's their main target. Berrien Brown is just this incredible athlete. He's basically Xavier Worthy, but with even less receiving skills. And he's the all-time SEC kickoff return touchdown leader. I mean, super explosive guy. Like, dude, you'll freak out at how fast he is, but very, very poor skills as a just pure receiver, unless it's just an open ball hitting him in stride.
I was going to say, hit him in stride over the middle. He's a 10-4-5, 100-meter guy.
Yep.
He's most known for his returning abilities, kick returns. He will wig you out. But yeah, just not super polished, right?
Yeah, and they brought in Jamori Macklin from North Texas, who was kind of like a star receiver there, and he's not made a dent. Part of that is just the Kentucky passing game is dysfunctional with Brock Vandagriff.
And they have a little bit of speed with Fred Ferrier too.
Yeah.
So
when you watch Kentucky, you're not going to be like, "Ooh, these guys are sorry they lack athletes." You'll see an SEC team running around, and when they play their best, they show that, as against Ole Miss, as against Georgia. But when they play their worst, I mean, they don't have a floor. How bad they are is like hard to estimate, particularly on offense.
Yeah, Dane Key's a good player. Berrien Brown's a good player. I like their wide receivers, like Ryan Nelson's saying. I actually like the wide receiver core too bad they don't have a quarterback that can throw it to them.
Can you talk about that?
I was going to say that's the big issue. Let's look at the past game stats real quick, and then we'll talk about the one and only Brock Vandagriff. Not very solid. Okay. So a lot of red here, guys. Passing attempts per game, 112th in the country. They don't pass a lot. Team completion percentage, 126, so not an accurate passing team. 101st in yards per pass, really bad. Passing success rate, can they make passes when they need to down? No, they cannot. 126 in the country. Some passing explosivity, good here, right? Because they can give it to Berrien Brown. They can hit you with Dane Key, who can moss you. Don't fall asleep on them. They can hit you there. But it's not enough. Like I said, they're still scoring as an 11th most explosive team in the country. They're still averaging 19 points. So congrats. They're gonna get it to Dane or Berrien a couple times. It's not going to be enough.
That's a crazy dichotomy to be that explosive in your passing game and have it not result in points. It's really crazy.
Yeah, it is. But it's also just people fall asleep, right? Like run. Berrien Brown goes for 20, but doesn't.
Well, we'll say this. We're going to break down Brock Vandagriff a little bit specifically, but the one thing he can do, throws a good deep ball.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll dig in on that a little bit.
Against Murray State, you see his first two throws in that game, and they were awful. It was an absolute duck, died in the air. The guy dropped it, and he came back again, threw it again, absolute duck. So I don't know what was going on there, but if you watch, I guess it was Murray State they played last week. He had two awful throws.
I gotta admit, I didn't watch the Murray State game.
I only have to watch it because I have to check for injuries. So I have to see who starts. So I only watched like the first quarter, and he looked ugly to start it out. And then quarterback sack percentage, 115th in the country. They get hit a lot. So let's talk Brock Vandagriff, the Georgia transfer junior, 6'3", 217 pounds. Paul, what do you think?
Interestingly, he was a big recruit coming out of high school, and he's a dual threat. He can actually run. He can use his legs. And Kentucky's offense is set up to run the ball and hit you on play action. And he's not good at play action, Connor. He is completing 48.6% of his play action throws. He has also 5 turnover-worthy throws on those 72 attempts.
That's the worst in the SEC, by the way, on play action completion rate.
That's right. And then under pressure, look, all quarterbacks tend to underperform under pressure. Under pressure, by the way, doesn't mean blitzed. It means literally you experience pressure, whatever's going on in the play. Maybe there was a blitz, maybe they're rushing 3. The point is the guy gets through and you're now throwing under duress. He is 17 of 62, 27% completions for 236 yards. That's 3.8 yards per attempt.
Yeah.
So that is the worst stat line I've ever seen under pressure.
Vandegrift is not a playable quarterback right now.
I mean, it's a tough thing that if you can't do play action or if you get
a rushing offense,
fold. But I am telling you, he is 14 of 32 on throws 20 plus for 464. That's 14 and a half yards per attempt. He has what a PFF terms 11 big time throws, all on those passes.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the only thing he can do. He can get you deep. If Kentucky can free a guy deep, Brock Vandegrift has a pretty good shot of hitting him. Murray State accepted. But that is what he can do. And that's the only thing buoying his offensive performance to even startable, and which, as you said, is debatable at this level.
Yeah, he's a professional handoffer right now that can hit the deep ball occasionally. And not occasionally. I mean, he's top 5 in the SEC for deep passing, like Paul said. So good deep passer, 14th in the league in intermediate, and he's about 6 short, right? So he can do some things short, but it's mostly he's going to hand the ball off and then he's going to throw a bomb, and that's Barry and Brown getting wide open. Like when they came back, I think it was Ole Miss on the sidelines. Barry and Brown made an insane catch towards the end of that game. And then Dane Key also can go up and get it. He's a big wide receiver. So it's not always to like throwing dots. I've seen his wide receivers like make plays for him as well. So you have to be kind of aware of that. But like we said, still averaging 19 points a game. So they might land, in the boxing match, they might land 2 knockdowns on you, but you're going to win the fight. And so that's kind of the tricky part. He's top 5 in time to throw as well, so he holds the ball too long.
Probably related to his sack data. Hey, Brian Nelson in the chat asked thoughts on the Kentucky backup quarterback. Believe it or not, I do have thoughts because he used to be the starting quarterback at Rutgers. And Rutgers kicked him to the curb in the offseason. His name's Gavin Wimsatt. And they replaced him with Ethan Kaliakmanis, who, if you know anything about college football, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in college football at Minnesota last year. But Rutgers thought Ethan Kaliakmanis would be an upgrade over Gavin Wimsatt. And you know what? They've been right. Ethan Kaliakmanis is still not good, the Greek rifle, but he is better than Gavin Wimsatt. Gavin Wimsatt can run the ball. He's pretty effective with his legs, and that's it. So if they put Gavin Wimsatt in, quarterback run.
Yeah, Wimsatt is exactly. He is he's a Wildcat quarterback essentially. You'll see him. I'm trying to show you guys a picture. Big dude, dreads, but he comes in. He can't pass either. So that's what's interesting, right? Because it's like, to me, Brock's not a playable quarterback right now. But he has to be, which is scary, right? If you're Kentucky, you're like, if Brock's our best option, man, we might be in some trouble here. And I think that they are in some trouble here, clearly, statistically. So yeah, Brock, I hate his game. Like when I watch him, I just don't like him as a quarterback. I don't normally feel very strongly negatively about quarterbacks. I am just not a Vandegrift believer or buyer at all. Not a fan. All right. So we saw the horrible passing offense. We know that they have some good receivers. Brock can hit you deep sometimes, but other than that, a highly dysfunctional team.
So why are these advanced statistics? They're not good, but they're better. Is it simply because Kentucky's played several good defenses?
Yeah, I mean, their efficiencies, I guess, are all right. They're not – when you play such a low amount of plays, right, like you're going to score 19 points, but it might have been like you still scored on X amount of drives, right? There's just such a few amount of drives. So it's like their efficiencies could be okay. Like they're scoring – say like they're so slow, they're only having 3 drives a game, which equals like 19 points, right? But they're still scoring on 2 of 3 drives. That's an exaggeration, but
So I'm looking at it more like the advanced offense numbers there are not in the red just because they're playing Ole Miss, they're playing Georgia, they're playing even Auburn.
Their opponent adjusting so heavily for it.
Well, yeah, and those are really good defenses, and so you're kind of getting credit for sucking against them, but it doesn't scale up. So in other words, when Kentucky plays Vanderbilt, you'd be like, oh, okay, now they're gonna explode because they're not playing Georgia and Ole Miss.
Right.
And it's like, nope, you scored 17 still.
Yeah, these are a lot of this stuff you'll see is self-inflicted here too. And I mean, look at the situationals. I mean, just a team that has the least clutch team possible. This is when you see this much red, there's poor coaching involved, there's culture involved. Like, this is not good. You don't want to see your situationals this bad, right?
All right, let's talk about that. You said coaching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So Kentucky became semi-relevant as a respectable team that goes to a bowl every year, in part because Mark Stoops was able to recruit there, was able to get some good players. If you pay attention to the NFL draft, it's not uncommon. Kentucky will put out 5 guys, usually on defense. But, that offseason flirtation with A&M was a little more than flirtation. I think they got in bed together.
Correct, yeah.
And then the wife came home and interrupted him. But I just think that him coming back to Lexington, like, I was in College Station, just, I like to winter there. I like to go hit the sidewalk cafes in Bryan.
Yeah. College Station's beautiful this time of year.
Like a little Paris. I like to see the leaves turn. He comes back.
I like to see the Applebee's in Kyle Field.
I'm wondering if he kind of got the side eye from his team and his players, and sort of that affected buy-in. Not just that, but also staff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, clearly that seems like what's going on here, because they're not playing for him, and this drop-off is insane. So 93rd in the country in standard down rate. Standard downs, it just means you can run or pass credibly, and the defense doesn't know what you're doing, right? It's not a passing down. So it's advantageous. As an offense, you want to be in standard downs. They're putting themselves in a lot of passing down rates, and they're not good when they're in those passing downs. Third down, 83rd in the country. Fourth down, real clutch moments, 127th in the country.
Yep.
Early downs EPA really bad, right? First and second down, not able to do what they want to do. 114th there. Now, when it's time to finish in the red zone, 103rd, not able to close either. 102nd in interceptions thrown per game, 123rd in fumbles per game. So just really a nightmare offense that I don't even like. Even if they rise, like, for them beating Ole Miss is insane. Like, with these numbers, with Ole Miss's defense and that offense, like, they're able to do some magic here, right? Sometimes, and drag teams down into the muck. But I mean, these numbers are absolutely horrific. And also, like, I think as the season's gone on, there's been much more give up and acceptance of not being a good team. It's rough. So as a fan, hope Brock doesn't hit like 6 explosives, because that's what they'll need.
Well, if you're going to score, if you're going to win, you need explosives and you need methodicals. You know what? You need that in every phase of your life, Con. You need that in your mortgage guy. You need a guy who's explosively bright, but also methodical, dots every I, crosses every T. That guy is Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. He is not the Brock Vandegrift of mortgages. No. He is the TY of the mortgage game, and he dominates the great state of Texas, just like our favorite number 10. Also licensed in several other states. So if you're not blessed enough to live in Texas and its mighty confines, you can still give him a call. And even if he's not licensed in your state, he'll just help you out just because he's a cool guy. Tell him that we sent you, and he'll help you, coach you through your mortgage process and get the best deal possible. Call him. He's great. Gabe Winslow, 832-557-1095.
Yep. And we had a viewer refinance with him, and they gave a great review.
Yes, they did.
So your fellow viewers are utilizing Gabe. All right. Paul's elite. Like, this is where Paul really shines. 5-star segue. This is the content we are here for. Sometimes he's so natural with it, he catches me off guard. You know, I'm like, we're talking about deep. Oh, no. We're going to the segment. Paul does great on that. All right, let's look at the defense, right? Which I think is more of a respectable unit.
A lot more green.
A lot more green, right? Opponent points per game, 26. So they're holding teams pretty low, man, about 21 points. Really interesting. Opponent plays per game, second. So they on defense, they're able to squeeze the life out of offense as well and shorten their plays. And when your plays are shortened, what does that mean? You need to either hit explosives or you need to be hyper efficient. No, like can't be wasting 5 drives when you're playing these types of teams. You have to execute when you have the ball. All righty. Opponent yards per play. This is interesting, right? 69th, about average, 5.5. Defensive points per drive, 58th in the country. Defensive success rate, I think, Paul, is kind of to some of your explosiveness argument with them, of them limiting explosives, right?
Yeah.
Their success rate's bad, 108th. You can kind of move the ball slowly forward on them, but they're not going to give you the shot, right? 22nd in explosiveness. So kind of like
Mark Stoops for 10 years, he does not allow shots over the top. That's just not happening. So they will play off coverage and let you, dink and dunk. So, we're going to have a little bit of Quinn Ewers of the last 4 games versus that. And, we should expect to see a lot of checkdowns, a lot of short stuff, unless Sark has something specifically schemed up that he sees.
That's weird. That doesn't sound like our offense.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Also, if they aren't stopping explosives, we will also still check down and throw screens. It's just we enjoy it no matter what. It's a passion of ours. Rushing defense, 43rd in opponent yards per rush, averaging about 4 yards per rush. Once again, defensive success rate, they'll let you move forward, but they're not going to let you, hit an 80-yarder. Which I like that. In the run game, love that philosophy. I mean, just let them get 4, let them get 3. Who cares? Just don't let them hit the home run.
Although,
what?
I'm surprised that held up because there was a game against Auburn where Jarquez Hunter ran for 280 on them.
Yeah, he's nice, man. Yeah, he's nice. Let's look at some defensive players. So what was really interesting last week versus Murray State, some of these guys are hurt for real and out for the season. Like I believe Eric Jackson, the Will, is out for the season. But we're in the first phase of load management.
Yeah.
So like Deion Walker didn't play, Saunders didn't play. I think Weaver is actually for real injured. The Mike could be injured, but I think he's coming back. But I saw like Barry and Brown was out for that game. A lot of guys were out. Like you see the Reds here, right? A lot of red for Murray State. Not all of like half of those guys were not on injury reports 2 weeks ago versus Tennessee. Didn't appear to get injured versus Tennessee.
They're being held out to rest.
Correct. So, and even their media kind of hinted
Friday and got suspended.
Yeah. So either some type of like discipline issue or whatever, but most likely we're seeing the beginning stages of holding players out simply because Deion Walker's not going to risk draft stock to hurt his knee versus Murray State. There's that kind of stuff too. So we're seeing some load management most likely here. So even though you see a lot of red, most of these guys will be returning, bar a few of them. They're all right. Like as far as like personnel, like effective run defense, you just have to watch for Deion Walker on the interior. The edge have no top half run stoppers. Mike Johnson is okay. He's been injured. The DBs do all right. Ty Bryant, JQ Hardaway, Alex Afari. They're all right run stoppers, but not a crazy. You'll see that this is actually more of a pass rushing team than it is a staunch run defense. It's pretty. I didn't even realize they were going to be this good at in the pass rush. What is interesting though, they're not holding up great on rushing power success rate. So those thirds and gotta have it and stuff like that, they can get bullied a little bit, which I wouldn't have thought, because you just kind of heard going into this year, Kentucky's D-line, Kentucky's interior is going to be crazy, and it's not as crazy as you think.
Yeah, what's weird is beyond the stats, the way that Kentucky hung with Ole Miss and beat them, and the way that Kentucky hung with Georgia and made that a 4-quarter game. I thought it was D-line, front seven, just being super physical.
They're big.
And big, yeah.
Yeah, they're big. Like, I'm trying to show you guys some looks.
Linebackers, too.
Yeah, like a lot of people were hurt versus Tennessee, but it's kind of the look. They're kind of a 3-3-5 team, and then they'll have this. This is nickel Childress, but they'll like detach an outside linebacker. They can come up on the line. But you look at like Matthews here, right? No, I think Noah Matthews is named 55. Look how big of an outside linebacker that they're putting on a Tennessee receiver. Like, that's not a corner or a nickel. Like, that's a legit big boy. So it's a big team. They play pretty close to the line of scrimmage, as you can see here, right? This is going to be important versus Texas. They're going to crowd those kind of looks. So a lot of guys near the line, and then some man look up top, single high safety look. Probably end up being cover 3 by the time it's said and done. But
so that's a great point, Connor. They crowd and then they back out of it.
Right.
So they're trying to show you one look and get you to, throw it over the top. Oh, they got a bunch of guys in the box. Let's throw it over the top. All those guys are dropping.
And that's going to mess with Texas, right?
Yeah.
Because basically what you're going to do is crowd. And so you crowd the line against Texas. The secret's out. Crowd the line versus Texas. If Texas decides to go to a screen, great. All your guys are near the line at that point. You can do it. Now, if you see that they're crowding the line and Quinn goes, okay, I'm going to hit the deep shot, doesn't matter. We're going to drop out anyways and be able to stop that deep shot. So now we're going to make Quinn think he saw it, freeze, slow down, check down again, and then we can rally. Yeah. So the answer is, like, at first teams were answering Sark by saying, like, keep everybody back. And now it's turned to, like, crowd the line and then fall back. And it's been effective. But Kentucky's going to crowd the line, but they're still not going to give up explosives. But they're a big physical team. It's like an absolutely SEC team we're working with here. That's been the most interesting part, just watching games in the SEC, just realizing how much overall teams are bigger. You're just seeing dudes. All right. In the passing game, teams aren't passing a lot, right? Because they're not getting a ton of plays, right? So third in the country in opponent passing attempts per game. So very limited options, right? You can't afford to be an inaccurate quarterback with these few opportunities. Like, you're going to have to hit, or you're going to have to hit 5 or 6 explosives.
But teams are doing that. That's crazy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But that's kind of the trick, right? It's like, we need efficiencies. Yards per pass. This is what's crazy. 8.5, right?
It's high.
117th. So passing success rate, teams are able to drive pretty well. And even with their schematic design of not giving up explosives, they're still pretty average at it.
Yeah.
And also too, right? Like, if you're dealing with dropping safeties, like, we don't really do this well, but if we were any other team, you can still hit explosives on comebacks. Explosives doesn't always mean behind the defense. We think it always means, like, you got to beat the safeties, but safeties are corners playing way back. Okay, run the line and then come back, and you can still get 15 yards on a comeback.
Yep.
But this is what they're really good at. Quarterback sack rate. 9% of the time they're sacking quarterbacks. 9th in the country. Of course, we have to be hyper aware of these things because Quinn has shown some issues getting sacked. So be wary of that, right? Like, the fear here is how this game could go sideways on offense is we're not efficient in the early run game because they're all right at it. That puts us in these passing downs. They're able to tee off in the pass rush. And then we have such limited passing opportunities that we're not efficient, right? And Quinn's not hitting explosives a ton right now either, which you would need if you're not efficient. So there's recipes here for potentially an offensive stall. The flip side is there's really no recipes for them to beat our defense on offense unless they just have an insane, unlike them performance, right? But that's kind of the recipe here. They're going to slow down game, hope our offense stalls out, and hope Vandegrift can hit Barry and Brown or Dane Key several times deep, which I don't see happening as the number 1 pass defense in the country, but could get weird, right? What do you think?
I think their formula for winning is that their defense really frustrates us. They get short fields. They kick field goals off of it. And then Barry and Brown brings back a kickoff.
Yeah. Oh, and they are, guess what? We'll pull it.
Maybe we throw a pick six. Something that seems like that's how they can get 21 points on the board, 24 points on the board to be enough to win.
Right. Against this defense, yeah, I just can't see them scoring unless there's weird stuff. So guess who's the number one special teams in the country? Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we do have to be aware on special teams, right? Because they're as elite as it gets. They're number one in special teams in the country. So super solid.
This game sounds like an under.
It does, right? Yeah. I don't think Texas is going to go crazy offensively, and I know they aren't going to go crazy offensively. So our defensive efficiency is 43rd in the country, doing pretty well there. They have weird situationals though, right? This is what I didn't expect. Like 88th and third down. So
isn't that weird?
Isn't that weird? I know. It's like I don't get what's going on with some of these numbers. But yeah, 109th and third and fourth success rate. Now this is where they're really, really, really talented. But it's weird to have this. Normally, third down and red zones hang out together because they're situational. And when you're good at situations, generally you're pretty good. But so it's weird to have a really bad third down defense and then turn around and have a top 10 red zone defense. So they're really good here, right? In the red zone, that's important to know. Yeah, Silver and Walker, those are their nose and their defensive tackle. And then Deion Walker's a first-round guy from last I checked, at least.
Yeah, he had a huge year last year. And this year, my understanding, he's just been good. So I don't know. I haven't watched Kentucky to know.
Oh yeah, I only with Deion. I just remember going into this season, everybody was like first round. I mean, he looks good when you watch him on tape.
Yeah, he's huge and he's mobile.
A good pass rusher. I was worried about this game in the offseason because I thought Kentucky wide receiver could give our corners trouble. But with Barron and Money Muhammad's play this year, I have no concern with that offense.
Agreed. Yeah, I felt Kentucky might be a trap game because of where they are on the schedule, right before A&M. That Stoops plays good D. I thought they had some offensive upside. It's like, hey, what if Brock Vandegrift pans out? What if he's actually a 5-star? And nope, it didn't pan out.
No. Very talented team. We're used to this in the SEC now, right? 24th in the country. Good at sacks per game, 37th. Average at getting interceptions. Pretty good, 40th at causing fumbles, but ultimately with the offense hurting them, they're 87th in turnover margin, so they don't win that battle. But they've been tested; they failed to test, but ninth strongest schedule in the country, and then a little bit below average in penalties per game.
So they're 4-6, is that right?
Yeah, they are. You notice I put the win in the Murray State column before I even watched the game.
Yeah.
They are 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they are 4, 2. Yeah, 4-6.
Look at that. Like, they just sometimes don't play. Like, South Carolina and Florida humiliate them.
Mm-hmm.
And they go out and they beat Ole Miss. It wasn't fluky. Like, they physically were the tougher team. Georgia was nip and tuck. They were kind of cowardly late, and Stoops just like his nuts receded into his body cavity late in the game. And
dude, that was a
close win. But I mean, physically, honestly, they held up better against Georgia than we did on offense.
Oh yeah.
So that's a weird team, and I think it gives some credence to the Stoops stuff of like things start to go awry, and I think that they're like, oh well, whatever. What are we doing later tonight?
Yeah. I think they were healthier back then. Yeah, that's true too. I mean, they've been really beat up injury wise. It also feels like I have this weird theory. I don't know if teams are bad because they get injured or if bad teams get injured more. I don't know but it feels like bad teams like start to rack up injuries. Even I don't know if there's like something to it that it's not always the injuries are preceding them being bad. That like there's something about like you get hurt easier when you're a bad team. I don't know why. They're really beat up right now. Yep. They sure are. Yeah, you saw all the red here when we're looking through. They got some guys back, luckily. But Barry and Brown didn't play either, which I just need to see if that's a load management thing. The problem is when they're playing Murray State, I don't get the reports. And also their media doesn't cover that game really well and talk about injuries because who cares? It doesn't matter. So that's why I hate the dreaded FCS or whatever game in the middle of the season because you kind of end up in an information black hole for a week. But JJ Weaver is a good player. You'd want him back. Saunders is good rotational depth. You want him back. Deion Walker, of course, didn't play, but I think that was load management. Both of their starting linebackers are out. De'Aaron Jackson, I think, is out for the season. Yeah, he's out.
Lost. Jamon Dumas-Johnson has been awesome for them. So that's the 5-star from Georgia who has panned out. He was actually a star at Georgia 2 years ago. He was up for the Butkus. Transferred out to Kentucky. He's been really good for them. Super physical dude. Like, he brings it. So imagine if David Benda was 3 inches taller and about 15, 20 pounds heavier. He can run. He brings pop. He's a big physical dude. And he's listed at 6'1", 245. He plays even bigger than that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be important to see what they're doing at their linebackers because that'll be helpful too in the run game for Texas. And then returners, Macklin out of UNT will be their punt return. And then Barry and Brown will be their kick return. If he's healthy.
Just kick it to Barry and Brown. Kick it out. You can kick it out. If you can kick it out of the end zone, great. If you can squib kick it and they start on their 30, that's fine. I just don't want to give him the opportunity to go 100, and
because they're going to need that.
That's how they win the game. If they're going to upset Texas, that's how they do it.
Yeah. Let me see. Is Harrison out still? Let me see if he was in the game. No, he's back. He started Murray State, so their second corner is back in the game.
And DJ Waller. So here's an example of the SEC that people don't get. There's no one in the Big 12 that would money whip a Texas player that we like and want to start and bring them to Oklahoma State. That's not happening, right? Yeah. They'll get a third-team guy who might have upside that we like, but he's lost in the depth chart. Freaking Kentucky, who's not exactly a football powerhouse in the SEC, they went out and money whipped DJ Waller. He was going to start at corner for Michigan.
Yep.
They went out and got Jamon Dumas-Johnson. Now, did Georgia fight super hard to keep him? No, because they had other good linebackers, but they wanted to keep Jamon Dumas-Johnson and start him. But they were like, well, Kentucky will pay you this. We can't match that. We got to manage our salary cap. So, understand that in the SEC, your number 11 program or whatever Kentucky is in that league, they could go out and like money whip people with NIL. And, trust me, their fervor is 10x for basketball than what it is for football. But it does give you an idea of like the new world that we're in.
Yeah, it's a different paradigm for sure.
Yep.
So Kentucky, right? There's a reason they're not winning a lot of games. They're not a very good team, but beware of them dragging you into the mud, shortening the game, using those talented wide receivers to get in the hunt. And then most importantly, can they make the Texas offense stall out in the run and in the pass? But those are things you got to be wary of. But other than that, there's a reason why we're 21-point favorites currently. Which, are you taking that? I'm not taking 21 points.
I would take Kentucky if you got up into like 23.
But it's a shortened game too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's why there's value in that. Texas can beat their ass 28-7, right?
Yeah.
And if that line elongated, you could still cover with Kentucky. I think it's 20.5 everywhere I've looked. And there's a reason.
I just looked earlier in the week, so you have more recent than I do.
Yeah, so I think if you compress a game, you can really beat someone's butt 27-7, and you still don't cover, right?
Yeah.
And are we hugely incentivized? So also with games like that, where there's a truncated game, does Sark jam it in at the end of the game and offer a big FU to the opposing coach, or does he kneel it 3 times?
That's not really Sark's MO.
Sark's MO is like, hey, play the game correctly. Don't humiliate your opponent. We're going to kneel it 3 times inside their 10 near the end of the game. Same thing against Arkansas. Obviously I would have thrown 3 times to the end zone because I'm a jerk, but Sark.
Well, I think it's situational, like versus Tech run up score. Like when Sark did,
Sark is like the nicest guy in the world. So.
Yeah, so it's like there's really no point. Like versus Tech, when they were talking noise run up score, OU always auto run up, A&M auto run up. But like if you're a respectable coach or whatever, then yeah, you don't need to run it up. Stoops is a good recruiter and has built a physical program. He has the most success against Florida for any Kentucky coach in recent memory. Game management isn't ideal, but good coach. Watching his presser yesterday, I just like that guy. He answers stuff like very upfront and was like very clear and very honest. And I think he rat poisoned us with some of the stuff he was saying about us. But
no weaknesses, Connor.
yeah, whenever he was like, Texas has no weaknesses, I was like, hey, man, give me a call. I'll give you a couple weaknesses.
Yeah, join Inside Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Stoops like, hey, man,
not all the weaknesses.
Watch our channel. There's a couple weaknesses here.
Interesting thing about Kentucky that you're going to laugh at this, but let me develop my theme. Part of the fall of Wisconsin football has to do with Kentucky. And here's why.
Proceed.
Kentucky, for those who don't know, is right on the Ohio border. Ohio, it's not Florida, it's not Texas, it's not Georgia, but they still turn out a lot of pretty good football players. Well, guess who isn't very interested in Ohio football players? The Ohio State. Ohio State's football team is comprised of a bunch of guys from Texas, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, California. They recruit nationally. They supplement with a few Ohio guys, but they don't really recruit their guys in state. So who used to clean up those guys, those lower 4 stars, high 3 stars in Ohio? Wisconsin. You know, these sort of second tier, good program Big Ten teams. Well, that kind of faded. Kentucky has been the team, a border state. They come in and they get really good Ohio talent. They also are good at signing their homegrown Kentucky guys. There's not a ton of elite talent, but you know, it's a state that plays football and they can dominate it. And so they've actually been able to make big inroads in the Midwest. Now they still go down and recruit the South because you have to, and you're in the SEC, so you've got a good story to tell. But they've actually benefited a lot from Ohio State's choice of not really recruiting Ohio athletes. They're interested. Ohio State plays in the Big Ten for all purposes. They're an SEC team, right? Fan base, fervor, the athletes actually on the field. You know, how many big Texas players have we lost to Ohio State in the last 5 to 10 years?
Yeah.
So anyway, Mark Stoops has done a good job identifying that and exploiting it. But they can't really get over the hump because he is a guy who's very interested in his floor. Like, he's trying to go to bowls. He's not trying to construct teams that are going to freaking go 10-2, 11-1 when they catch lightning. He's trying to consistently go to bowls. So, yeah.
Kentucky's done well in Detroit. Deion Walker is from Detroit. You can find a few high-level players there as well. I haven't looked at their roster in depth at all, so that's interesting. I did not know any of that.
It's true.
That's cool. Same with OU. For years and years, there are more Texans on their team than from anywhere else. But yeah, that's natural. Like that's OU has
the program at OU without.
Yeah, you can't win with just Oklahoma players. All right, let's look at some opponent games of interest.
Let's do it.
And these are theoretical games of interest, right? So basically, we have to know the structure of the playoffs. So if Texas wins out, they're in automatically, right?
They're in.
Most likely against Alabama. But there is one situation, like if Alabama loses to Auburn or whatever, then it's Georgia. Okay, so we're looking at the options that we'll end up playing.
Is Tennessee completely out of it through all permutations?
Functionally, yes. I can't guarantee because I didn't put click every button. But yeah, they're functionally out of it.
A&M Auburn, baby. Got the Texas Aggies against the Alabama Aggies.
Yep. And night game, right? And I was watching the Luchador podcast, Billy Lucci, yesterday, because I'm getting to jump on A&M prep. And they've said, and I watched a couple of A&M guys. Basically, you're like, is this Texas A&M Texas game the biggest game ever for Texas A&M?
Jesus.
So it's like, because they've never been in a situation where if they went out, they're in the SEC conference. They've also never been 6-2 in the SEC. I mean, there's no bigger game ever, and it's a win if you're in. Well, the week before you got Auburn, right, who just constantly shoots themselves in the foot. But if they would remove the bullets out of the gun, occasionally they could probably upset some teams. And as you see here, Texas A&M is only a 2.5-point favorite here, and they're on the road at night versus Auburn. And Auburn likes to play spoiler historically when they're not having their weird, like, every fifth year elite season.
All right, well, let me ask you this. So both teams have their huge existential rival the next week. We know for a fact, I can tell you for a fact, Hugh Freeze will skip prep for a big game the following week.
Yeah.
So does A&M get Auburn's best shot, or is Auburn running Bama stuff all week? And they're just going to go out and play and try to play well, but they don't have anything special prep for A&M. They're going to hope that the home crowd and a young quarterback melts down on the road, right?
Yeah.
A&M can't – they're not afforded – they would have to be completely insane to just prep Texas this year, right, or this week, if they have ambitions of playing in the SEC title game, right? Now, I understand beating Texas is far more important than beating Auburn, but is it far more important than their season goals?
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I heard Lucci say, too, that he knows for a fact that they're holding stuff back for Texas.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to hold stuff back. But my question is,
Yep.
Are you just running specific prep? Like, is Auburn doing Bama scout team 2 weeks in a row?
Yeah.
3 weeks in a row, because they just played. Didn't they just play their FCS team? I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, well, so it's like tricky, right? Because A&M had what? They had a bye. So they had a bye, FCS, Auburn to Texas. So theoretically, they can be prepping Texas for a month.
That's a good point.
You know, so it's like and this Lucci said two things that I thought were interesting. He said he was watching the Murray State game to see, like, look, are they holding stuff back to try to trick Auburn and trick Texas? And, you know, hey, we're going to break out some stuff. And he says there's absolutely some wrinkles that they're going to break out for Texas at least. But he said mostly what he saw was like what they actually need to do. Because, right, Marcel Reed, it wasn't a consistent passer versus South Carolina. So versus New Mexico State, sorry, I think I said Murray State earlier, but New Mexico State, they made an added emphasis to give him a lot of passing reps. So they're doing a lot of things. I don't think they're being super sneaky. I think they're actually trying to get reps for the Texas game. It'll be interesting to see. But there's always going to be subterfuge involved in this game. But can they? They've never. My point too. They've never had these stakes ever.
No,
you know, and their media is like literally saying we've never had these stakes. A&M's not known for their road success.
No, they're not.
And they're not known for handling. They're not known for handling any success. Right? They beat LSU. All their media said Marcel Reed's the second coming, and then they go get embarrassed by South Carolina. So they can lose this game. You know, they're only 2.5-point favorites.
Yeah, the wild thing about Auburn is if you actually watch their games, they're kind of in it.
I know.
They just self-destruct. And then they'll kind of quit sometimes. I mean, it's just weird.
Yeah.
So if they have early success, it's going to be a great football game. If A&M comes out and stakes a lead, I think Auburn lays down and starts getting ready for Bama.
Yeah, they'll tap. And two, man, like, I don't want A&M to lose this game. I want A&M, like, I want this Texas A&M Texas game to be crazy, you know. And the way to do that with stakes is to have Texas A&M and Texas win and get in. So I want them to beat Auburn. And actually, I almost want them to beat Auburn handedly. Like, I like A&M how they play after a confident win.
You like confident Aggies?
I love confident Texas A&M. So it's like, hey, man, go win by 20 versus Auburn, and I want y'all feeling great going into Texas. Comments? I always want A&M to lose unless they play OU. I do not.
That's kind of how I feel.
Well, also, just practically, right, from running a YouTube channel business, I would prefer A&M's viewership to be at its highest. So there's also some, like, just
okay, we got some selfish.
There's also some selfish means here, right? Like,
I like it.
The higher the stakes the game is, the better it is for business as well. But also, I want to win. I just want the fight to be sold well, and then I want to win it. All right. Let's look at some other options that we could have, right? So most likely if we win out and Alabama wins out, it's going to be a Texas versus Alabama game.
Yep.
And it's just a fun way to talk about Oklahoma right now. So Alabama is 14-point favorites on the road versus Oklahoma. Oklahoma, what's going on, baby? What's up, baby? What happened?
OU's not having a great year in their debut in the SEC. They Alabama's weakness is if you can get to their secondary, you can throw the ball. Oklahoma can't get to anybody's secondary. And then on offense, if they run Mill Row, which they like to save and preserve, right, as much as possible, I don't know that OU has an out. I don't know that they can stop that and still cover, Ryan Williams. So, yeah, I think this will be kind of an ugly game. And then Bama's just trying to survive and advance to Auburn and take care of business. So the line strikes me as about correct. You would think Bama would just blow them out, but it is at Oklahoma, and I think Bama their focus is just getting out of this game with a win. So.
Yeah, Bama has the pressure, right, of winning out, and they'll likely make the conference championship. Yep. And then Oklahoma, they need to win their next two to even be bowl eligible, right?
Golly.
So there's two motivations, very different, but both teams do have motivations. But Oklahoma just wants to, in year 3, make a bowl. Alabama, of course, has bigger pressure here of trying to make the conference championship.
And they extended Venables.
Yeah. It's Homer thinks with his wallet, good man. Yeah. At least I'm transparent, right? Other medias are not as transparent on why they want a good fight next week. UMass versus Georgia, right? Georgia could be another opponent. Alabama drops a game to Auburn or something like that, right? Which is possible because Auburn does like to play spoiler against them. Where I'm predicting right now, I'm going on record. I think Georgia beats Massachusetts.
Wow.
Yeah. I do think they win that game. And at 42 points favorites, I think maybe the bettors agree with me a little bit as well. This is not really to argue about who's going to win this game. It's more to kind of talk about Georgia here. I don't think there's any question to me that Georgia's a playoff caliber team. It's just it's going to be interesting to see how the playoffs kind of shake out. What do you think, Paul? What do you think of Georgia? Do you think they're a top 12 team in the country? Taking away the structure of like the 4 top bids get in automatically, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, they are. Especially if Carson Beck plays like he did against Tennessee.
Yeah.
UMass just fired their coach, so they might get that little bump from the interim.
Which is such a weird phenomenon, right?
It is. Also, if you're UMass, why are you firing your coach before the season's over? Like you're trying to get in line.
You're getting a jump on like some high school coach you're going to grab.
Kurt Signetti or something. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. We're going to lose our 1 millionth ranked recruiting class.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I just think that Georgia, when they come to play, is incredibly dangerous, right? But they don't always come to play. They close with Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah, they come to play based on how hurt Kirby's feelings are. That's what I've noticed.
That's probably about right.
Yeah, so it's like he was like, how dare we be disrespected versus Texas? It's like, because y'all looked horrible leading up to Texas. Like, what do you expect? And then they came out and played awesome. They crushed it. And then Kirby started feeling that disrespect again before Tennessee.
Right.
Like, yeah, Ole Miss killed you, man. Like, every time you've been disrespected, it's earned disrespect. But it is funny to see.
I do love the disrespect angle.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I like it when, so Kirby was trying to do that 2 years ago when Georgia was the preseason number 1.
I know.
And is this one of the best college teams of all time? And he's like, we hear all these people saying Georgia can't get it done, that we're a flash in the pan. It's like, no one's saying that, Kirby.
Literally, no. Everyone's saying, wow, every player on that team's
You're literally just making all this up.
He's doing the Michael Jordan technique where they nonsense perceived slights.
People always say that I'm a worse player than Patrick Ewing. It's like no one says that, Michael.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, luckily Georgia's been able to do it, and they've earned every time people have doubted them.
Sure.
All right. Auburn doesn't win at Bryant-Denny Stadium unless they have Cam Newton. I don't think Peyton Thorne is Cam Newton. Pretty bold statement. I actually think Peyton Thorne is clearly a better player than Cam Newton. He just has not got the opportunity. I think Peyton Thorne's been injured, and that's what's holding him back.
That's it.
From being Cam Newton.
Let me ask you this, Connor. If we have things sort of play out as they're supposed to, There's 6 SEC teams with an argument for a playoff bid. Ole Miss, Bama, Tennessee, Georgia, A&M, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
You might only get 4 SEC teams.
A&M's out.
Okay.
They're already out. Just like I think Texas, this is not going to be popular on a Texas
10-2 Texas has some risk.
I was going to say, so this is not going to be a popular opinion on a Texas YouTube channel, but here's the reality. A&M hasn't played anybody. Texas hasn't played anybody. Is it Texas's fault? No. They scheduled respectfully. Did they know Michigan was going to drop off a cliff 10 years ago when they signed the deal? No. But Texas's only ranked game will be against A&M. That's just the truth of it. And so if you lose that, I mean, what do you if you take off the Texas jersey and you put it on A&M, which we're about to do because A&M's in the same situation, you have to use the argument both ways, right? I would kick A&M out because they only played Texas and they lost. So the inverse also has to be true. Even though I think the eye test is clearly Texas is a top 12 team, but you can't use eye test. You have to use these like resume techniques.
That's where the playoffs goal to build an entertainment product as well as the top teams would actually benefit us, right? If you can, the tiebreaker for Texas is television sets, Texas appeal, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of scenarios where 10-2 Texas is in trouble.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what's unfortunate. You got to win. The interesting part is like,
but if we lost the SEC title game, that's irrelevant.
I hope they honor that. But to me, you shouldn't get penalized for, losing in a conference championship game. But it seems like they might end up doing weird stuff. Who knows?
Not with SEC teams. I think that'll apply to like Big 12 and ACC teams. That's an eliminator. But SEC or Big 10 teams losing in the conference title game, that's not going to count against you unless you lose like 63-7 and you have a bunch of injuries or something, whatever, right?
Yeah. This is an interesting topic. It makes no sense to me that ranked wins against teams that they were ranked when you beat them don't count. So here's it makes total sense to me because it's like we're using all available data. Michigan was a ranked team. They're not a ranked team. But here's the interesting part on the border, right? So say like this team would be ranked if Texas did not beat them. That's where it's interesting because if they played an FCS school that week, if they played an FCS school that week and not Texas, they would be ranked.
Good
point. It's those borderline ones that I actually do have questions about. Now, if they were ranked and they go on to be 500 like Michigan, can't count it. But if their only reason they're not top 25 is because I beat them, that's an interesting conversation.
The caveat I would offer for a Michigan is if Michigan they were driven by a dominant quarterback and he missed that game, that is relevant, right? Or he played in that game and Texas beat an amazing Michigan, but then they lost their star quarterback and they've since degraded. You do have to give Texas credit for that win. But that, as we know, Michigan's just an average football team. And that's what we know now based on more data points. Similar deal for OU. We thought we were going to get a lot of credit for beating OU. And then all of a sudden they start to have their quarterback issues. And then you realize OU's not good. Yep. And so suddenly a couple of games that we had circled as like, hey, these are important resume builders, Michigan, OU, they don't mean anything. And that's fair. So,
and the tough part too is like a lot of Texas wins are discredited too because we've had like a really nice run of not facing starting quarterbacks, Yes. So it's like, so even like a lot of our wins don't even have a lot of oomph to them,
Yeah,
so
and you can only play your schedule. I mean, people are like Texas. Oh, what a joke! It's like, yeah, we didn't schedule Bama, Michigan, and Ohio State in our non-con for the next, for the last couple of years and for the next 3 years because we're trying to duck people. We're playing awesome teams. It's not our fault if they don't.
Correct.
Keep their part of the bargain.
Yeah.
And so OU fans who are like, Texas has a weak schedule. It's like, yeah, you're the big reason why.
I know. I've heard OU. OU's like, OU's like, you didn't play anybody. It's like, I know. We wish OU played well.
It's like, oh, Paul's not a tough guy. When I fought him, he beat my ass.
Yeah, I know. That's
like, shut up. I beat your ass. Why are you talking?
Yeah. But I think here's the important part, right? We're also talking about all of this right before Texas gets to play a ranked A&M. Yep. And then if they do that, then they're going to go to the conference championship. If they win that, all these conversations are totally done.
Yes.
So it's like, luckily, Texas. It would be sadder if like Texas was finishing with an FCS team like everybody else in the SEC, or something like that, where you had no chance to prove. But Texas, this will all be done. We'll know what's up in the next 2 weeks. So that's what's nice.
I think Drew Kelson sums it all up nicely, Connor.
Say.
Life is so much easier when you just win all your games.
Yeah,
and Drew actually knows what that feels like.
Yeah, Drew does know what it feels like. All right, fans, that was fun. I hope you guys learned about Kentucky. Shouldn't be a crazy game. Potential to get weird, but likely not going to get weird. So, like the coaches say, make sure you guys are looking ahead to Texas A&M next week. Don't even focus. Right. Don't even focus on Kentucky, guys. Don't even watch.
We have to be intentional, Connor.
That's true. Yeah, be intentional, guys, with overlooking this week's opponent. But anyways, there could be some fun matchups there. They got some wide receivers. Fans, thanks for hanging out. We enjoy it. Paul, thank you as always. Hook 'em, y'all.
Hook.